The Times report says Trump discussed naming fringe lawyer Sidney Powell as a special counsel to investigate her wild conspiracy theories around election fraud. The Times says there was pushback from inside the Oval Office meeting on Friday, including from Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and White House counsel Pat Cipollone. As the president continues to consider options to overturn the result, despite the outcome being certified in all states, while his campaign and those supporting it have lost almost 6 cases in the courts. As some of the president's supporters openly push for options like deploying the military to rerun certain swing state elections.
He could immediately, on his order, seize every single one of these machines around the country on his order. He could also order within the swing states, if he wanted to, he could take military capabilities and he could place them in those states and basically rerun an election in each of those states. I mean, it's not unprecedented. I mean, these people out there talking about martial law, it's like it's something that we've never done. The martial law has been instituted 64 times.
Trump lost the Electoral College and the popular vote by over 7 million votes, but has refused to concede the election, even as senior Republicans in Congress have acknowledged President-elect Joe Biden.
The Electoral College has spoken. So today I want to congratulate President-elect Joe Biden. The President-elect is no stranger to the Senate. He's devoted himself to public service for many years. I also want to congratulate the Vice President-elect, our colleague from California, Senator Harris. Beyond our differences, all Americans can take pride that our nation has a female Vice President-elect for the very first time. I look forward to finishing out the next 36 days strong with President Trump. Our nation needs us to add another bipartisan chapter to this record of achievement.
President Trump's Twitter timeline is riddled with misinformation and conspiracy, with the platform flagging a majority of his posts with a simple message: this claim about election fraud is disputed. But that has done little to quell the contagion of his fabrications among his supporter base.
They felt that the Supreme Court should have at least heard the case. Somebody has to hear the evidence and allow at least those of us who believe that the election was fraudulent to hear the evidence, pan itself out, and make a decision based upon the facts, not saying that you don't have standing because you don't have an injury. Because we all have injuries over this. I'm from Pennsylvania. My vote didn't count.
We the people cannot accept communism in this great country. We will stand against it.
Martial law. We're going to martial the law. We're going to use the martial law.
The United States Congress meets January 6th to affirm the election result. Setting the scene for a final showdown around this electoral result, where congressional allies of the president are expected to call for a debate on the House floor, a move that does not necessarily enjoy widespread Republican support. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell, for example, has told his Republican Senate colleagues not to contest the election result when that joint session of Congress convenes early next year, leaving a dejected outgoing president flirting with the fringe. Sherwin Bryce Pease, SABC News, New York.
And Sherwin Bryce Pease joins us now live from New York. A very good evening to you, Sherwin. So how seriously are these efforts, including talk now of, martial law in swing states that the president lost? How's that being viewed in the United States?
I want to say not very seriously, Griselda, but it is the President of the United States, and I think anything that happens in the Oval Office should be taken with a certain degree of sensibility and seriousness. I will tell you that the outgoing Attorney General, William Barr, just gave a press conference. He will be leaving that position before the end of this month, and he was asked specifically whether he agreed with the speculation that Sidney Powell, this fringe lawyer that has been espousing these conspiracy conspiracy theories, whether he agreed that a special counsel was even required to investigate electoral fraud and ballot rigging as claimed by President Trump and his supporters. And the answer was that he would not do so. And of course, William Barr Griselda has also previously stated that he hadn't seen the levels of widespread fraud that would change the outcome of this election. So there is a constitutional process underway here. States have recounted, they've ordered their results. All the states have certified. The Electoral College has certified. Congress will meet on January 6th next year to affirm those results. There might be some political theater, maybe a debate, but the constitutional process has held firm here in terms of getting to Joe Biden's inauguration on January 20th. And in terms of the Constitution, the power that is vested in the office of the president would immediately then transfer to Joe Biden, and President Trump would be left without certainly the presidential immunity, for example, that he has enjoyed up to date. So there's a process underway. It's unfolding despite the craziness that we're getting from certain quarters in this country.
Sherwin, one of the major international headlines also today is the closure of the border and suspension of flights from the United Kingdom to various countries over a new and fast-spreading variant of the coronavirus discovered there. But no such decision from the United States, it seems, which is creating some tension domestically. Do tell us.
Yeah, a lack of urgency, in the country that is experiencing the highest number of deaths, daily deaths, since the beginning of this process, Griselda. Case numbers that are over 200,000 a day, 3,500 people dying on certain occasions. Andrew Cuomo, the governor of New York State, of course, the governor that was at the epicenter of the global pandemic earlier this year, where case numbers were exploding on the east coast of the United States. He has called on the United Kingdom to halt all their travel to the United States in the absence of a federal decision from the U.S. to close their borders to travelers. He said that right now the variant, this additional variant that scientists have identified, is getting on a plane and flying to JFK. And he pointed to the fact that the coronavirus entered the east coast of the United States, not from Wuhan, China, but via Europe before it came to the U.S. And his concern is that you could see a similar iteration of that now, just as the hopes are here in the United States of turning the corner, particularly as this vaccine gets rolled out. He tweeted a short time ago, Griselda, that British Airways has agreed to screen all their passengers on incoming flights to the United States. Before they get on board, they must present a COVID test. He is also in talks, I am told, with Virgin Atlantic and Delta. So in the absence of a federal decision, the New York State governor directly talking to airlines that transport passengers from the UK into the United States.
We also understand that President-elect Joe Biden will today publicly receive the first of 2 shots of the coronavirus vaccine. Of course, as leaders in the U.S. ramp up efforts to build confidence in the safety and efficacy of the 2 vaccines that have won FDA approval in the country. But there's still skepticism, there seems, Sherwin, that continues to be rife. Explain that to us.
Yeah, the successful part of this vaccination program is the uptake of the vaccine by a majority of people. You want 60 to 70% of people in any country to take the vaccine so as to create that herd immunity, which is the goal in terms of arresting this virus. And so we've seen public figures, the vice president and his wife on Friday, Mike Pence taking the vaccine, Nancy Pelosi, senators in the United States Congress taking it, really to uplift the public profile and to create confidence in this process. It's something that Dr. Anthony Fauci, the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, addressed a few days ago. Let's listen to some of the questions he says has been raised around this.
2 questions get asked when people have hesitancy or reluctance to get vaccinated. Did you go too quickly is the first. The answer to that is the speed was a reflection of extraordinary scientific advances and did not compromise safety, nor did it compromise scientific integrity. The next question is, okay, but what about the fact, is it really safe and is it really effective? Or is this something the government is trying to put over on us? Is this something the companies want to take advantage of? The process was independent and totally transparent, which brings us to where we are today. This important symbolic vaccination of the Vice President of the United States and the Surgeon General of the United States, which is something we want to be symbolic, to tell the rest of the country the time is now to step to the plate, and when your time comes, to get vaccinated.
Is this something the government is trying to put over us? There by Dr. Fauci, and of course, Griselda, it is more prevalent in communities that have been disproportionately affected by coronavirus, including the African American community in this country and Hispanics. 40% of Hispanics and 50% of Black people in the United States, according to Pew Research, say they would either probably or definitely not take the vaccine. And this has raised particular concerns in terms of public health leadership in this country. The Surgeon General of the United States, Dr. Jerome Adams, addressing this very issue.
Let's now do the necessary work to go from vaccines to vaccinations. It would truly be the greatest tragedy of all if disparities in COVID outcomes actually worsened because the people who could most benefit from this vaccine can't get it or won't take it. Working to combat mistrust and misinformation will be critical if we are to ensure the equitable protection of all Americans against COVID-19. Lack of trust, especially in communities of color, is not without good reason. The shameful Tuskegee experiments occurred within many of our lifetimes. To truly promote confidence in these vaccines, we must start by acknowledging this history of mistreatment and exploitation of minorities by the medical community and the government.
The Tuskegee experiment happened between the 1930s and 1970s in the United States, Griselda, where the public health service in the country conscripted essentially about 600 African-American males that had contracted a syphilis and allowed the disease to progress through their bodies without treating it with penicillin. So that's just one example of the suspicions, particularly from certain communities in this country, based on the fact of the past, the history of medical racism in the United States that is now raising concerns as it pertains to the COVID vaccine.
And finally, Sherwin, I mean, new forecast models there in the United States showing that up to 65,000 people could die in the US between now and January the 9th, despite vaccines being rolled out. What is driving these devastating numbers?
Family gatherings, in essence, the fact that we saw these family gatherings around the Thanksgiving holiday, people communing within their homes, thinking it's safe, the asymptomatic spread, of course, still an issue in those scenarios. And of course, again, as we move closer to Christmas this week, people will be traveling. We are seeing an uptick in the number of travelers at airports. And of course, you're on those planes in confined spaces. This is how the coronavirus spreads. And so there's a great deal of concern that, wearing masks, washing your hands, and social distancing, those three protocols that are so universal right now, are not being applied here. And that's why you are continuing to see an uptick in the number of cases in the United States, Griselda.
Sherwin Bryce Pease, live from New York. Thanks indeed for your time.